so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. Now, of course, understanding this powerful truth is one thing. Applying this incredibly empowering wisdom to everyday life, well, that's another, which is exactly why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week to help constantly remind you of what matters most. You are it. And I'm your host, Brandon Beecham. I'm the one who will be here with you each and every Wednesday, interviewing a different consciousness changemaker that is also out there working tirelessly to help catalyze change and expand awareness all across spaceship Earth. On the other 4 weekdays, you can hear me discussing topics such as my favorite thought-provoking quotes, reading and discussing wisdom from empowering books, playing clips from various inspirational spiritual teachers, sharing a bit of mysterious news, taking questions from the audience, and essentially digging into any other mind-expansive topics that will help keep your soul fed by tuning you into positive vibrations on a consistent basis. And you guys have heard me say that if I ever run ads on the show, it will only be with a company that I fully support because I believe their intention is to make a positive difference in the world. Well, I'm pleased to announce that day has arrived and that this episode of the Positive Head Podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. All right, all you positive heads, on this week's interview episode, I'm very happy to have Benjamin Foley here with me on the show. Ben is a top writer over at medium.com, runs the Fully Rich Life blog, and has written pieces for such outlets as CNBC, Thought Catalog, and the New York Observer on overcoming anxiety and depression. Hey there, Ben. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me. Really grateful to be here.
Yeah, definitely happy to have you. You know, when you reached out originally, I was instantly, yes, this is a great topic to have on the show. As you know, what you've went through and what you're helping people with is something that if folks don't have a direct experience with it, it's certainly someone very close to them, right? Dealing with anxiety and depression. So I'd love to dig in and kind of figure out what's worked for you and hear some of your stories and your journey. And before I get into all that, though, I would like to start with the same question that I always open with. And the question is, you're in an elevator, you got 10 floors to answer. The guy next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" What do you say?
My passion is writing and helping. My mission of what I'm doing is to help people, wake up to the life. So for me, that means my passion in life right now is writing and helping others overcome any negative mental baggage that they have and allowing them to help, live a better life.
Beautiful. Well, that is a very good purpose, very much aligned with what we're all about here on the show. So what a shocker, you're here.
Yeah. So fall similar in line.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your background, your story, and what you've been through?
Definitely. So my initial kind of career started out in finance in New York City. I went to Indiana University and studied finance at the business school there. And that was kind of who I was, right? Ever since high school, I had this single drive of being successful, of being financially abundant, but for the wrong reasons. And so just trying to force my way into this path that I had been handed down kind of by parents and, family members and things like that. And so I found myself in a really, dark place, really existential crisis, if you will, at the deepest level, as I was finishing up an internship between my junior and senior year in New York City and at a finance firm. And I, spent the summer just really not taking care of my body and definitely not taking care of my mind, drinking and carry on with things like that, not really understanding what I was really doing to myself. And I found myself on a subway car heading to meet some friends for brunch and just having the first attack of panic that I've ever had in my entire life. And it just shook me to my core. I didn't know what was going on. My heart was racing. Everything around me just seemed like they wanted to, harm me. I just felt like I was so alone. The Buddhists talk about like the groundlessness, and that's what I felt. There was just no ground to stand on. And immediately as I got to the next stop, I bolted. Eventually made it home and drove cross country and had to stop about every hour because my body was so tense that I would start having spasms in my legs. But finally got home and went through just a really dark period that senior year because I just was around, the college atmosphere, dealing with this, but not taking the steps necessary to handle it. I never went to a psychologist. I didn't work. I still drank. I still ate crap, and still had. I in my mind, I was like, if I just make it financially in this finance world, then I'll feel secure and that will take away this feeling. And so my senior year, I just kind of buckled down and, like I said, ended up in New York again, working in finance. And I know you asked this question a lot, so I'll tell that story later. But eventually got to New York and just kind of got to this point where I was, at my wit's end, and I was, no longer okay with living the way that I was living, and I realized that the finance, the money was just never going to get it. A lot of people, you hear all these successful people like the Jim Carreys and all these people are like, I wish everybody could get everything they wanted to realize it's not what they wanted. And I feel like I got really good. I was really grateful that anxiety brought that to the forefront sooner for me. And so for me, I usually look at my anxiety as a very grateful thing. It's like a superpower for me. I was able to detect a path that was not the right one. And so that kind of spurred a 18-month, if you will, journey and to kind of a lot of stuff that you talk about on here and kind of manifestation and spiritual journeys and just kind of stepping out of the spiritual journey that I had growing up, which was, very conservative Christian American life that I hated and that I was rebelling against. But I'd always kind of felt there was something more. And so I started stepping into that and, doing meditation and, reading from all of these different, sectors of kind of that world and really working on my mind. And that got me to where I am about 4 months ago. My fiance was like, hey, why don't you just write about this? Maybe you could leave this finance job that you don't really like and kind of maybe help people do what you did. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting proposition. So about 4 months ago, I started writing, and the first couple articles were really bad and, kind of on like a Tony Robbins self-help type, not really adding really any value. And then I wrote an article that was kind of raw and about my experience, and something that I had not a single friend or family member knew that I had gone through what I went through. I hadn't talked to anybody about it. My fiance knew about 10% of it. And so I finally shared a little bit of that, and it was amazing, the outpouring I got. And so I wrote another post that got picked up on CNBC, and that's kind of been the last 4 months is me writing and talking with people and trying to help people, speak up about their own issues, because I really think there is a huge value in the power of story and in the power of sharing your own struggles with others. So that's kind of a little background of how I got to where I am.
Yeah, that's so inspiring. And, as soon as you got really raw and really authentic, people resonated, right? And it's something that you've dealt with, and you've sort of been bold enough to go out and actually lay it all out to the world. And that takes some guts, right? I mean, it's not easy to expose these so-called weaknesses that many people would view it as, right? Oh, I got to put this face to the world that I'm so tough and strong and I've got it all together and I've got everything figured out. And, anxiety or depression, that's for people who are screwed up. And it's like, no, it's not. It's something that everyone has dealt with. And I think you're very wise in understanding, hey, it's sort of like a speed bump when you're going off the side of the road and all of a sudden you hit those bumps, right? To keep you, in case you fall asleep at the wheel. That's the same type of tool. And you've turned it from, saying this is something awful that happened to me. It was actually something that served me. So I applaud you for, having the guts to, put it all out there on the line. And obviously, as a result of doing that, you're helping other people. And so now you've quit your finance job, and this is what you're doing full time. Is that right?
Yeah. So about 4 months ago, my fiance and I were in that transition of moving out of New York City. We both kind of loved the city environment, but it wasn't right. And so we actually moved to Chicago. And during that period, I was like, I could either keep doing this and trying to make something of a living of this, because it was for the first time I sat down, and it's like that flow state. I've heard about it before, but I never felt it until I had started writing and started reading about this stuff. And so I was like, I'm going to try this. I had some savings built up, and so luckily it's been growing really great. And the audience and the tribe of people that are kind of surrounding are just such amazing people, which I'm sure your listeners are as well. They're just, great, kind souls. And it's just been a great journey.
Yeah. Isn't it wonderful how, what I love about doing this type of work is those that are in resonance are going to find it. It's going to find, everything is vibration, everything is energy, as I talk about all the time on the show. And when you have a certain path or vibration that is, here's what Ben Foley is about. Here's what he's been through. Here's what his offering is. And that may evolve and change as you grow. But certainly, just coming from that authentic state, I think is the most important thing that people get so caught up to and comparing to what do other people do? How am I supposed to do? You had mentioned Tony Robbins, like, oh, I'm going to be Tony Robbins. Like, no, there's only one Tony Robbins, right? But there's also only one Ben Foley. And when you're coming with that unique, authentic approach, doors open up. And I mean, in your case, 4 months. I mean, that's no time for you to have the sort of trajectory and growth that you're having. That's why when I saw it, congrats to you, first of all, and having the guts to, walk away from, in your case, it's like a 6-figure job, right? To do this work.
Yeah. I mean, thank you so much, first off, for your kind words. It's been a great journey. It's definitely, there's the ups and the downs, and I'm trying every day to really, live out those highest values that I want, that if I believe in what I'm doing and I have a purpose behind it, that the doors will open when they're meant to be open, and really trying to attract the best and positive energy in myself so that can come through. But yeah, it's definitely hard looking at friends who are making what I could be making, and the feedback from most of them has been amazing and things like that. But definitely family members and certain people have viewed what I'm doing as insanity. But that's okay with me. And I've always kind of been a little bit of a heretic in that way. So it's been awesome.
Cool. Yeah. It's one of those things, Ben, where I have no doubt as you continue down this path and you've walked away from sort of the carrot that's been dangled in front of you of financial abundance to some degree, or more financial abundance maybe than you're experiencing now, but being out of alignment with your path and your passion. And I have zero doubt that, you maybe at this moment, 4 months out, you could be making more money. But I guarantee you, if we circle back around a couple years from now and do this interview, it's like, oh yeah, I'm making 5 times what I would have been making had I stayed in this job that was unfulfilling and not in line with, serving. Because I always say, you're going to find your path in some way involves serving others. And it could be a corporate job in some way. I'm not saying it can't, because there are certainly those that are serving through that way. But for a lot of us, it's going to be finding. It seems like a theme of, okay, I'm going to tempt you to play it safe or go for it all. And for a lot of people, they never get off that fence. So like I said, I really applaud you for doing that. And I have no doubt that it's kind of like Terrence McKenna says, one of my favorite quotes, which I've said many times on the show. He talks about, you putting yourself out there, facing those fears and jumping off the cliff, and you're going to ultimately find it's a feather bed, right? So
I like that.
Yeah. The whole quote is awesome. It's beautiful. I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but I've recounted it many times on the show because it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, no, I think that, and I'm sure you've experienced the same building the community that you have and everything, but as soon as you jump off that cliff, you wish sometimes the feathers bed would come a little sooner, or
right.
You're like, am I going to hit that feather bed? I'm still falling.
It's right.
But you're so kind to say that, 5 years from now, I hope, my whole goal is impact. And like you said, you say it serving. I usually say it like make the biggest impact that I can. And that's what drives me. So, luckily I have that going for me.
Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about the anxiety thing and depression. And, I think of my brother, who I'm very close to, been very close to my whole life. And he went through this thing, the same sort of thing. He'd wake up in the middle of the night. I remember him coming in, we've been roommates, business partners, very close our whole life. And I can remember many times, in his 20s where he would come and, at 2 a.m, like, Brandon, I think I might need to go to the hospital. My heart's racing like crazy. And, and he's just just like wild eyed with, having a panic attack and facing and dealing with depression and those sorts of things. So, how did you, now obviously getting in line with serving others, I think is one of the best ways you could ever deal with depression, or, if you're sad, if you're down, go find a way to give of yourself. And I guarantee you that's going to, help overcome those issues, at least in those moments. But myself, talking about some of these issues, even, on yesterday's show, I talked about trauma and some of the, it's a very touchy subject, when you talk about creating your reality, and then you also look at the idea of some of these horrible traumas that happen to people and events that I can't relate to because I've had a fairly charmed life overall. I've always been sort of the eternal optimist. Not that I've never been anxious or depressed or any of those things, but comparatively, I think to the average person, very minimal. So as someone who's really been through it, sort of like my brother has, what are some of the things that you found how to handle anxiety? I know you had an article. One of the articles I was reading was talking about 10 things you gave up to help you with that.
Yeah. I mean, well, thanks for sharing about your brother. And I hope that, he's been, gotten more healthy and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of this, where it starts is I went down the normal American path. When we have something wrong inside of us, we go try to find a fix for it at a hospital or a doctor. And like I'm saying,
sure,
there's not I have nothing against doctors, nothing against psychologists or any of those things. But the problem is they aren't equipped sometimes with the knowledge to really help you. And the problem is they take, 1 semester of wellness class their entire 4 years of medical school. They're trained to give you medicine and stop your problem.
Treat the effect, not the cause, right?
Exactly. And so I went down that path and was given, prescribed many number of anti-anxiety pills. I mean, like, when you feel bad, just take one of these. And thank God, from immediately I was like, this isn't right. Like, there's got to be another way. So it took a while, but I definitely started just searching. But the things that have really helped me the most is it's usually the simple things, right? Like, I think for me at one point I was like, did I do something wrong? Like, it was an existential, like, I created this and I did in a way, but it was something that I could also co-create out of. And so for me, it was diet was huge. And there's a lot of science behind the foods that you eat or don't eat that will aid your anxiety. Like I was reading a great paper that's published in the Harvard Medical School Review about a lady who was literally living on the streets, psychotic, who they changed her diet to just not have her eat gluten anymore, and she was completely fine 2 months later. This lady had literally destroyed her life. Her family had kicked her out. She had been living on the streets for years, thinking that she was psychotic, and all they did was change that, just remove gluten from her life, and she just changed. Which is insane. And like you were saying, I think
that is
our bodies are these amazing organisms. And so if something's going wrong in them, it's because you're inputting something wrong into them. And so the biggest thing that I did that really helped me is I just wrote out every single thing I was inputting, whether that was food, whether that was, the radio, movies, friends, and nothing was sacred, right? Like, I was like, my number one goal is that I am getting healthy. And so one of those was the friends I was around. I was just around this culture of drinking and just kind of, drugs and these things that I knew were not helping me. And so I was like, okay, I need to move. And so I moved from Chicago to New York, initially after school. And I was like, I need to get out of this situation. And so, like, relationships are huge. So, like, it's like diet. So the steps for me was diet, relationships, like you said, serving, finding a way to help out others was really key. But for me, the real driver that really kicked off everything was finding mindfulness. I know it's a big talking point nowadays, especially meditation and stuff, but and we'll talk about this maybe more later, but I came across mindfulness and it just really helped me understand that the thoughts I was having and these feelings, they didn't mean anything. It was just a feeling. And then I told myself a story about it. And so that was really helpful. And that helped me realize that the way I was sleeping was really bad. And that was huge. Just getting a consistent night's sleep every night can just really, really change kind of how you feel.
I do not do well without sleep. So yes, I would agree fully with that.
And most people don't. And most people, like, if you ask them what time did you go to bed the last 7 days, they probably won't know. And if they do know, it's probably like, oh, one night it was 10, the other it was 1 a.m. Then and your cycle really matters too. So, like, the consistency. And so for this whole month that I really started kickstarting my health, I went to bed at 9 every single night, like, no matter what. Like, I was like, I'm going to get a consistent night's sleep every single night. And I'm going to sleep 8 to 9 hours. And that was huge. And then I would wake up and meditate, and I was eating healthier. I was around people that I, really enjoyed and working on something that I enjoyed a little bit more. Obviously now I feel, completely, I still have anxiety, but I think I've understood that anxiety is like anger. Like, no one would ever say that I just eliminated anger from the rest of my life. Like, no, like, anger will come up if somebody cuts you off. Anxiety will come up if you have a decision you're worried about. And so, like, restructuring my mind to not view anxiety as this, like, disease, like cancer, but see it more as an emotional, sign of what's going on. That was huge. Because I think, for me, I just wanted to eliminate it or crush it, like they say. Right. And you can't, but you can live just as healthy and just as happy and content as people who maybe have never felt anxiety, even when you have those feelings. And that was really rewarding to me to understand that this wasn't like just me and that I could heal myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you make such a great point. It's when you are trying to crush something and expel it from your life, and instead you've sort of changed your story about it, right? And you look at it as, okay, I'm going to get this under control. And when it does come up, I'm using it as a tool, as an indicator of, being out of alignment perhaps in that moment. Maybe I need to take a look. What am I doing? Why is this coming up? How, and sort of letting it work for you instead of, saying, oh, I'm a failure, I screwed up again. And that's a lot of times the type of thing that patterns that people fall into, where they start, they set a goal, they set an aim, then they don't achieve it, then they beat themselves up for it, and it turns into sort of a negative spiral, right? So I think that's a really powerful point that you make.
Yeah, definitely. The cycle is huge, and breaking that cycle up, even getting that space, just the 1 second space between the thought and your reaction to it can really be huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like, and it's something that I also read that you sort of discuss in some of your writing is this, military prioritization. And it really sounds like you have that sort of discipline side of yourself. And it seems like it's probably, my guess is it's sort of a natural inclination that you have to get very detail oriented and so forth. And for those that maybe aren't naturally that way as much, I mean, what would be your recommendations, for people who are dealing a lot with anxiety and depression? What's the easiest way for them to approach it if they're maybe not as disciplined as you? They're not going to get in bed by 9 o'clock. They're not, the sort of a lot of times with these things, it's just taking one little step. It's finding the small victories. What do you think are some of the easiest ways to people to start down that path?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the easiest way that comes to my mind is sleep. We all do it, and we all have to do it. And just taking control of that could really, really impact everything else. And that's something that you don't have to add. You're already doing it. But for me, I've always habits, right? They're actually really hard to obviously add. So I usually try to start with what can you remove from your life. And so if you're drinking 3 to 6 cups of coffee a day and you're anxious, you just try to stop drinking coffee for 7 days, reintroduce it to yourself after 7 days and see how you feel. You're not going to, that 7 days, you're not going to change your life. But if you bring back coffee into your life and you start feeling that jittery feeling, maybe you don't have generalized anxiety disorder. Maybe you just have an affection to caffeine.
Right.
So that would be one, especially in America, in Europe and places like this where we drink coffee like none other. That would be coffee, soda or cigarettes. I know cigarettes are a lot harder to get off of, but that would be a suggestion. But for me, what was huge was just 10 minutes of meditation, 10 days in a row. So
meditation, I think, is a great one. One of the most important things a human can do. The more we understand it, the more we realize it's creates our superpowers. Essentially, it takes us. I think it is the avenue to becoming the next, greatest and greatest version of ourselves. And doing it in just short spurts. A lot of times it's intimidating because it's this daunting thing, and I've got to sit there. Hold on, I got to sit there still for an hour on end and never think a thought. And no, spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, like you said, and just attempting to do it, just setting the intention, just, following through and doing the best you can. There is no wrong way. Just that intention is huge. And, you talked about food. I always say every time I hear someone talking about something being wrong with them or, this is hurting or they're sick or this or that. I'm like, oh, cool. I know exactly what you should do. Go eat a lot of spinach. And of course I say that sort of jokingly. I don't consider myself to be some major expert, or doctor or anything, but the father of modern medicine, I think it's no coincidence. The father, who's considered oftentimes the father of modern medicine, Hippocrates, said, "Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food." And we went through this whole, and that was like 400 BC or something, right? Mm-hmm. And then we went through this whole, 2,500 years of trying all these different things. And now what are we doing? We're coming back around to understanding, what you're putting in your system is affecting everything. They've said, they've had it, children at schools, I saw something recently, an article where it was talking about they changed the diet of the school and how detention went way down. And I mean, it's so important. And we're in such a culture of, packaged processed foods, fast food. Just find a way to get away from that stuff. And I know at first it may be difficult because it's a habit, but and then of course there's all kinds of excuses. It's expensive. It's this, that. It's like, you can live off very little. Go just get a bunch of raw vegetables. And I know that can be tough, but the benefit as you start making those changes, I love the story of the homeless woman because it's such a great example of this. It's almost like we've overcomplicated things. Spend 5 minutes meditating, eat raw foods, see what happens, take out some of the things that, remove things that could be causing a problem. It's, in some ways it's like super simple, right? Yeah, exactly. Like, I would say all of the solutions that I talk about or that I did are simple. They're not like go to, this amazing resort in Arizona and like get all this meditation. Right. It's like, no, it's like you said, and I think it's hard for some people to rationalize that. They're like, no, this should be harder or this should be more difficult. Right. I have this disease that, society has labeled me with, so I need to go figure out how to solve it. Rather than being like, hey, like maybe it's something in your own ecosystem that's the problem. So yeah, I couldn't agree more that just eating better food is such a game changer. Huge. Such a game changer. I mean, look at how simple it is when you think about it. Food, sleep, sit quietly for a few minutes a day. I mean, those three things alone, I can guarantee anyone who is not doing those things or highly conscious of those three things, go to bed and, make sure you get 8 hours of sleep. Make sure, you spend at least 5 minutes meditating and at least switch out one of those McDonald's drive-through meals for broccoli, And yes, at first you're going to have cravings because you're trained. I mean, I think about when I've certainly experienced eating very unhealthy at times in my life. I've experienced eating very healthy as well. And I can think of going into there's a store near my house called Mother's Market, and it's very healthy food. They also have a restaurant inside the store. And I remember years and years ago going into that store, and the smell was like putrid to me. It was like all this healthy, fresh food. And it just was like, oh gosh, I kind of feel nauseous. I remember having like a wheatgrass shot and feeling like sick. And like, it just kind of grossed me out. Now I go into that store and it's like, oh my gosh, it smells so good. It's so fresh and alive. And it was just a matter of retraining myself. It's just a matter of, your taste buds change. Everything changes. You truly are what you eat. And if you get, once you're more like that stuff, then it feels natural. It feels good. It smells good. It tastes good. And there's the hardest part is really switching gears, right? Coming from, breaking some of those habits. So even just little small changes, small victories are, I think, the way to go, because otherwise it can be so daunting and people just give up before they start. Yeah. What I always tell people is just change your breakfast, right? Like I think that, one, our cortisol levels are the highest in the morning, which is funny why we have coffee in the morning when we have the highest level of energy in our bodies. But, adding a, bagel or, cereal and all these other packaged kind of breakfast foods to your morning is just going to create anxiety and stress throughout your day. So if you can just, instead of having a bagel, just have like even just a green smoothie, or if you don't like that, just a couple eggs and some, organic eggs and some good meats. But just like remove carbs and sugar from your breakfast. Yeah. And that alone will really help. Yeah. Breads, carbs, sugars are probably the worst things we can put into our system. And of course, we're putting them in everything, you buy out has all, so much sugar in it and so much, just finding something really simple. And there are things that you will find over time that's like, oh, this is really healthy and it's really good. This is going to become one of my staples, and then you kind of start adding to that repertoire.
Totally. Yeah.
All right. Well, now seems like a good moment to take a quick minute to tell those of you who aren't familiar a bit about our sponsor, Gaia. I've been a big fan of Gaia for many years now, which is why they're the only content provider I've ever reached out to in regards to potentially supporting the Positive Head podcast. So needless to say, I'm very excited they're now supporting the show. Gaia truly is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web. They have an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. Just to give you an example, on May 1st on the show Wisdom Teachings, host David Wilcock explores the scientific proof of ascension, DNA activation, and how interplanetary climate change is made possible with nested spheres of energy emanating from the galaxy. I mean, it'd be pretty hard to be more up my alley, right? As you guys all constantly hear me say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to go deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out.
So what are some of the other things that, in your experience in this journey, which is a relatively new journey, and that's what I love about it. What are some of the other things that you're doing that are helping you to overcome anxiety and stress? What are anything else that comes to mind? I know you wrote an article recently about building a bulletproof mind, which is, the Bulletproof brand and idea has been out there floating for a minute. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. So that article specifically was about, in a way, fear setting, but in a micro level, cold showers. So that's kind of been a huge thing for me that I've been working on, is kind of attacking my fears on a daily basis. There's a lot of science behind this, and I don't mean go up to your biggest fear today and tackle it, but for me, like a cold shower, it's so uncomfortable and it's not fun. And no matter how many days in a row you've done it, you're not going to like it tomorrow. And so for me, that's just a great symbolism for life, and that there's always going to be things in life that you're not going to like. Like, life isn't perfect and never will be. But you can train yourself to thrive in those conditions on a daily basis. You don't need to join the army to learn all of these mental resilience skills. You can jump in a cold shower, or, for the last 30 seconds of your shower, turn it to the coldest it can be and just sit there, because your mind is going to go to that same place where it's like, I need to get out of this situation immediately. I want to run. I want to get out, help me feel better right now. But just sitting with that uncomfortability and being willing to deal with it and just stay in there and realize it's not going to kill you is just a really value add to a situation, with whether it's your boss or your significant other or somebody else. When you realize that situation is really uncomfortable, you don't have to run from it. You can face it. And so that the cold shower thing is, it's not for everybody, but it's also, it's been a huge value add for me. But this, even doing these podcasts, and I've kind of started doing a couple YouTube videos as well, because I was scared. I've kind of built up what I built writing, and writing's, it's not easy, but it's masks, right? I can take my time.
You're kind of hidden behind the words in a sense.
Exactly. And you can take your time to craft those words versus a podcast or a YouTube video. It's there. I know you can edit and all these things. So, but for me, I was just really scared about putting my face on a video. And so for 15 straight days, I just created a 2 to 5 minute video on YouTube, and pushed it out to like all my email subscribers. And that got me over that fear. And so, I'm just trying to really, fear set my life and just keep building, because I don't think this path ever stops. And people have asked me like, what if you completely eliminate anxiety from your life? And I'm like, I'm not going to. Like, what if you completely eliminate happiness from your life? Like, there's these, there are emotions. I'm not going to. It's a path and a growth that I am on with my readers and with everybody. I just view it as this tribe we're building to understand ourselves better. It's similar to very similar to what you're doing as well. Is how can we understand ourselves better and live in this world better and just create an environment that's, thriving. And so that's kind of my new things, as well as like gratitude. I mean, if I could go back to your question about the one simple things that somebody could do today that's really low barriers to entry, is just write down 3 things you're grateful for and do that for 10 days. And that's really huge for me, because after the first 5 days are like my family, my, health, whatever. And then you get a little bit more nuanced. You're like, oh, the fact that I have working legs or feet or fingers or hands or my lungs are working. Radical
gratitude.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's always been a crux as well.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think of, you probably heard it said before, fear can stand for forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. And
I like that. I've never heard that.
Isn't that good? Yeah, it's so good. And it's so true. I believe it was Eleanor Roosevelt who said, do something every day that makes you uncomfortable, or something to that effect. I actually pulled up the Terrence McKenna quote, which I've probably read at least 5 times on the show, but it's so perfect for what you're talking about here. And some of the listeners, I'm sure, haven't ever caught me reading it before. So here it is. Nature loves courage. You make the commitment, and nature will respond to the commitment by removing impossible obstacles. Dream the impossible dream, and the world will not grind you under. It will lift you up. This is the trick. This is what all these teachers and philosophers who really counted, who really touched the alchemical gold, this is what they understood. This is the shamanic dance in the waterfall. This is how magic is done, by hurling yourself into the abyss and discovering it's a feather bed.
Ooh, I love that. That's powerful.
How good is that?
That's powerful.
So powerful. And that's exactly what we're talking about. That's exactly what you're doing, and you're living it. And you have put yourself out there. You've walked away. I mean, walking away from a 6-figure job is not easy. It's such a inspiration. And like I said, I know people who do this. It doesn't mean it's not going to be challenging. It doesn't mean you're not going to have a cold shower moments in your life. Right. Mm-hmm. But when you learn to dance in the rain, that's really the big difference. So many people are resisting the ups and downs, but the ups and downs, the ebb and flow is what makes it all worthwhile. We need that contrast in order to fully appreciate the wins and the up times. Without the hardship, it wouldn't have nearly the meaning. It would have no meaning.
Yeah, exactly. And you probably have read the book Stumbling on Happiness by a Harvard professor.
I haven't.
It's a really great book. It's by a Harvard professor named Dan Gilbert. And basically the theme of it is that human beings have no idea what will make them happy. And that we spend so much time trying to think about what will make us happy rather than doing things and then finding out that they, will make us happy. And that's kind of what I've viewed this as. I think a lot of my life is like that finance job, that title, the suit, the whatever, that's going to make me happy. And I realize that's not going to make me happy at all. It's the challenges, it's the excitement, right? I think that's what I try to emulate is trying to have excitement and challenge in my life rather than happiness. Because I think happiness is such a nebulous word, and like you said, if you didn't have the hardships, the upsides wouldn't matter. And so, right. Like, how can you? I think people are the most engaged humans when they're working on challenging problems, not like not overly difficult that they can't solve them. But when you're working on something challenging and something that you're passionate about, I think that's when you're the most fulfilled, and by byproduct happy. So, I couldn't agree more. And it's definitely has been very, very challenging, but very rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely putting yourself out there, something that you're scared of, like speaking, live or semi-live, right, with a podcast or video. What a great example. And then you overcome that fear. And what is the reward of overcoming that fear and facing it? Getting, reaching lots of people and finding that it's actually something that you're good at, right? I mean, listening to you talk, interacting with you, I wouldn't think it's something that you are fearful of at all, because it sounds very natural. And, so obviously you've overcome that. And as a result, now you're creating a richer life for yourself. So, facing everything and rising, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you become I don't know the best wording for this, but I think you become somebody who you never thought you could become when you're sitting back worrying about doing the thing that was challenging. I think you get to a different level than you ever could imagine possible. And then you just keep realizing that you love that process of just understanding yourself more and just becoming more, aligned with yourself here in the universe. So.
Absolutely. And, I think that's something, it makes me think of an interesting point. I think so many people think that there's not enough room, they can't do it. There's not enough. Oh, there's so many people already doing this or that, or, so many people are selling themselves short because they don't fully understand the power that's within them and that's available to them. There is enough room. There is enough abundance for you to find your own voice, for you to do whatever it is that maybe you've been scared to do or you don't think you're good enough to do. It's like you have as much ability as I have or Ben has, or it may be in a different way, right? It may be in some other way that you contribute. But so many people, I think, sit on the fence because they think, oh man, there's so much competition and I'm not good enough. And it's like there is, you are one with the source that created all things. And as a result, you have unlimited ability, power, and bandwidth. You create universes to fill your spot, right? There's not enough room, or I can't do it, or I'm not good enough. All those things are limiting beliefs that are just nothing more than a belief that's been given to you, that you've adopted, that you've been told and you bought into from others who let it run their lives. And, as you can see, there are people who are breaking those molds and breaking that through those barriers that are all self-inflicted. There's a great analogy. If you take and there's many different ways I've heard this thing explained, but if you take, for example, a flea and you put it inside of a jar, it can jump out of that jar, no problem. It can jump so high. Well, what they do is they'll put a lid on top of the jar, and the flea will jump up and it will hit the roof, right? And after a while, it realizes, oh, there's a barrier there. I can't get past that barrier. Then you can take the jar lid off, and the flea can jump. It will never jump out, even though it can. It's completely free to get out, but it believes there's a barrier there, and so there is. It's stuck, even without the lid on. Same thing I saw, same exact example with a shark, and they put plexiglass between it and all these fish, and it would try and go get the fish, and it would bump into the plexiglass and hit its nose and couldn't get through. And so after some time, it stopped trying to get to the fish. It realized it couldn't. And then they took the plexiglass out, and the fish would come and swim around the shark and everything. And it believed it could not get to those fish ever. So it never, ever ate them. And it had full access. So this is our lives. This is, all of our lives are, you've been sold the story. You've had a lid put on you. And what we're talking about here is how do you realize there never really was a lid. And thankfully, you got sold that story, because it now gives you the opportunity to rise, face everything and rise and become something more than you ever believed that you could.
Totally. And I think that I love that analogy. I hadn't heard of that. But I think that applies also to anxiety and as well as, following your passion. I mean, I think the lid is the label. And I think that we, as if we're the fleas who had struggled with something, but in the past, like you got kind of stressed and, 50 years ago, you're just like, your dad was like, go rub dirt on it. And that might not have been the best parenting, but like you figured out how to get through that and build resilience and grit. But now it's like, as soon as like a kid or, I just get so sad, like moms will reach out to me and label their children with like these massive acronyms. And I'm like, it's like sensitive child syndrome. I'm like, what, you're doing that to your child. I'm sorry, you are. Like you're putting that lid. And so now they're even when they realize that the lid's not there, they're not gonna do anything themselves to jump out of that. And so that, I love that analogy. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I just was talking with a listener and friend about this very thing. Same thing with her. Her whole life, she was shipped around to all these different doctors and hooked up to this machine and that machine and diagnosed with this, that, and the other. And she's 30 years old and she's still trying to overcome those labels, those ideas that were burned in her brain that there's something wrong with her, and there's nothing wrong with her. She's, so this, go eat broccoli if you think something's wrong with you.
Change your diet, sleep a little better, take a cold shower. Like there's nothing wrong with you. And I think that for me is the biggest thing that I tell everyone is like, you're not alone. Like I promise you, if you're listening to this right now and you're struggling, like you're not alone. And I think for whatever narcissistic reason, maybe for me at least, like when I was going through this, I was like, I am the only one going through this. Like, why is there no one else? Like but I think that's kind of narcissism for myself at least. But it's like, as soon as I started to look for things and resources, like I found like 50 books of like men specifically who had gone through anxiety and depression and who had like gotten through it and here's how they did it and all these things. And that's how I got into, a lot of the spirituality stuff again, because that's all of these wisdom traditions, whether you believe in religion or not. And for me, I don't. But like I think I like to call them wisdom traditions. They've been talking about the same ideal, and I think religion is the biggest lid anybody's put on anybody, especially the teachings of, like you said, like the source that we were all created from. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, of course, with organized religion, and I was raised in a similar fashion, very conservative Christian, and but I'm thankful for that lid now because it gives me the perspective that I now have, and it helps it to make it that much sweeter, knowing, hey, actually, there's not this external being that I need to worship, or else it's going to torture me forever if I don't, dance on one leg properly and juggle and say exactly the right things and do exactly the right things. It's actually I am one with that source, so it has no desire to harm me. I will feel the energetic repercussions of my actions because everywhere I go, I'm there waiting for myself, and it's all an extension of self, right? But not put you here, confuse you for 70 years, and then torture you forever. But I love you. Like that makes no sense. And it's there's a lot of people waking up to that, and a lot of people have been through that. And once again, as you said it very, very well, it's probably the biggest lid that's been put on mankind. But you know what? It gives us the opportunity to overcome something, and so for that, it is serving its purpose too. It is ultimately always happening for good, is what I would say. It's everything is ultimately happening for love, and it's giving that contrast and that context. And if we were all already there and had it all figured out, there'd be very little to do, right? So thankfully, there is. These things for us to learn from, grow beyond, and become, more of our higher self, more in line with that source. And also, thankfully, it's infinite. So every time we hit a new plateau, there's just as far to go as when we started, because it is infinite, and that sort of melts your mind to think about, but melts my mind anyway. And but I believe that to be so. The journey is the goal. You'll never ultimately hit the destination, because the destination extends infinitely. And that's a wild concept to think about, but also very inspiring because we'll never get bored with the journey.
Yeah, totally. And that's where I feel about, and I love all that you just said. And that's how I feel about building a community and a tribe and a business, as well as dealing with stress and anxiety. All these things, they're meant, those challenges are meant for you to overcome them. And like you said, being grateful that the lid was on you so that you could break through it and be, realize that it happened for good. That's what really was the mind shift that changed everything for me, was that like this anxiety is happening to me for a good reason. It's not punishing me, which my parents were very, I doubt they'll ever listen to this podcast. They're very vocal that they thought that like I caused this and that I should go back to church and should pray about it. And that was the advice I got. And I was like, I just don't think that's how I'm going to get better. But I'm so grateful for that, because now I'm so much happier and fulfilled than I ever would have been if that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, I always say, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. Mm-hmm. And not only is it happening for you, it's not just, it's happening through you as well. It's always, everything is happening through you. You are the sort of the center of your own world, of your own universe. And, the great thing about that is you have the power. It's within you to change it. And, it's a beautiful thing when you realize, you're so empowered, and so many people feel cut off and alone and, not and disempowered. And it's just because they don't realize who and what they truly are. And of course, a lot of people are changing that and seeing amazing results. And of course, when you start doing that, also, you get to, a lot of times you'll have, very sort of, magical sort of circumstances or synchronicities or serendipities or those sorts of things. And I love those sorts of stories. So perhaps it's a good time to ask you if you have a good story of synchronicity or serendipity that you'd like to share that you've experienced on your journey.
Yeah. And this goes back to that story that I talked about earlier when I moved to New York City right after college. I was still really struggling. I hadn't taken any of the steps necessary, but I had flown out in late December to view some apartments in Brooklyn, and I was, making my way through Lower Manhattan to meet a buddy for dinner, and I stopped in a bookshop. It's still to this day my favorite place in New York City, probably because of this reason. But I walked in this bookshop and had no inclination of what I was going to buy or anything. I was just wasting time. But I went up to one of the women working there, and I was like, "What's like your favorite book right now?" And she reaches behind her and gives me the book Gratitude by Oliver Sacks, and it's to this day my favorite book I've ever read. It's a collection of essays, but Oliver Sacks was a author and neuroscientist in New York City. He wrote a lot about kind of the happenings of the brain, but this was like a posthumously published work on his essays, and his main essay was kind of all about the gratitude for living, and it was written weeks before he died, and this book just opened everything to me. I hadn't read a book like for pleasure since high school. It'd been literally 6 years, and that like over the last year, like read hundreds of books now, and that's been a huge part of my journey. And without, I don't think, getting that book that was small and that was just so to the point, hey, like you're living and you're breathing, be grateful. I don't know where I would be. And so that's for me is just such a positive serendipity moment that was like I didn't do anything for that to happen. It just happened, and it was meant to happen.
Yeah. Just and look at the repercussions of it, how they not only flowed to you, but now they're flowing out to others from the perspective you gained. And, through your writing, through your work, through this podcast at this moment, right? So it's really incredible. A lot of times that's, when people think, oh, what difference can I make? And it's like, you never know whose life you're going to touch. And you may have a 5-minute conversation with someone that totally happens to be at the right time in the right place, where they're, on their own journey, where it really has a deep impact, which changes everything about them or leads them down a path of self-discovery, and they happen to have a 2-year-old that ends up being the future president of the United States, or, whatever one day. I mean, you never truly know the impact that you're having and how far it's going to reach.
Exactly. And just believing and for me, at least, I come from a very cynical family and kind of environment. And I think cynicism is the worst disease in the world. But
I agree.
But believing in that, I think that just believing that, this isn't a coincidence. What can this mean? And just, you don't need to know the 10 steps from now. You need to know the next one. And just keep following that. It's really hard, but back to I think everything's kind of falling back to this poem or excerpt that you read of the feather bed. But just knowing that the next step, you'll learn enough in the next step to get to the next one. And just trusting in that is so key. And we need more people like yourself and a lot of people probably listening. We need more people to live that and then express it and get it out there in the world. I think we are the change that we want to be in the world.
Yeah.
And that's
the examples. Yeah,
exactly. And that's my mission, is to, empower people to do the same and be 10 times bigger than I could ever fathom being, because, I think, like you said, we're in a very interesting place that, there's potential for a massive consciousness shift. And I want to be part of that being shifted to the positive.
Absolutely. Yeah. You talking about organized religion, what you were just talking about, you don't need to know the 10 steps as long as you know the next one. And that's faith, right? And this is putting faith into practice. I trust that the universe, source, my higher self, whatever you want to call it, is there to, is going to support my well-intended trajectory that I've stepped down. I've stepped off of the hamster wheel that catches so many others, and I've decided to find a way to serve. And it's scary to some degree, and I don't know what's coming next, but I have faith that this is, that I will be supported because of, everything is going to be a reflection of the underlying energy and intention. And when you actually act on those beliefs, you will find the universe, whatever you want to call it, source, God, your higher self, will lift you up every time. It doesn't mean it won't be rocky at times. It doesn't mean any of that, but that's just testing your faith, testing, do you really believe it? Are you going to bow out as soon as something gets difficult? Show me that you really believe this, kind of thing. And if you just stay the course and keep on believing and keep the faith, you will be lifted up. I have no doubt.
I totally agree.
Well, Ben, this has been absolutely fascinating to connect with you, my friend. You are such an inspiration and light, and I definitely look forward to following all of your ongoing and forthcoming success and reach. And what is the best way for people who want to follow your work to connect with you?
I'm at Benjamin J. Foley on Medium. That's usually where I post most of my articles, and that's where I love
Medium.com.
Medium.com. Yeah, I think it's medium.com/Benjamin J. Foley.
Okay.
Or just at my website, FoleyRichLife.com, and that's FULLY rich.com. Those are the two places.
FoleyRichLife.com, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And so those are the two places that I love to connect with people. I mean, I do have the socials as well, but I love, connecting with people via email and things like that, or comments. So those are kind of the two main areas.
Excellent. Well, I would like to ask you one last question, Ben. I always open with the same question and end with the same question. And that is, in 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Ben Foley?
The meaning meaning of life, according to Ben Foley, is to live according to your truest and highest values and help others to do the same.
Well said. Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Ben, for taking the time to connect here. And keep on keeping on. You are, like I said multiple times, you're definitely an inspiration. And I'm sure this message will get out and inspire many others who are maybe have been forgetting everything and running, and you are helping to inspire them to face everything and rise. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you so much. You are also a huge inspiration, and everything that you're creating and putting out in the universe is hugely, hugely valuable. So thank you for everything you do as well.
Oh, thanks, Ben. Till next time, journey well, my friend.
All right, you too.
Well, everyone, that concludes this week's interview episode. If you have enjoyed this positive download from our hearts and minds to yours, please take a minute, give us a rating or review on iTunes. Since iTunes is the holy grail of all things podcasting, your good reviews help us to reach more listeners. Also, we would be extremely appreciative if you would tell your friends and family about the show. Our sincere intent with the Positive Head podcast is to spread positivity to the world because we're selfish, quite honestly. I say that jokingly, but really only halfway joking. I'm referring to the good kind of selfish based on the knowing that we all get what we give in this life, because when we give, we're actually always giving to extensions of self, since we're all really one in the same consciousness, just in different bodies. So if you want to be a good selfish along with us by helping to spread the positivity, by all means, please proceed to shout about the Positive Head podcast from your rooftop. Otherwise, as you continue on your fabulous journey in this 3D reality, be sure to remember this. As long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Journey well, everyone, and thank you for being.